Wow, look at this spread. This is a food beer lover's dream come true right here.
It looks great, doesn't it? As we were saying, when I think about flavors and then how do we pair that to beer styles, I think, there's a lot of different flavors going on here with these dishes, right? I mean, these chicken wings with the beer glaze and that spiciness, right? It's got a little bit of sweetness. It's got those nice roasted flavors of the chicken and the chicken skin, right?
Right.
And then the spice, and it's kind of aromatic. I mean, what do you think of this dish going with what beer style?
Well, there's two schools of thought. One of the schools of thought, I think, is the classic one, which is the complementary, meaning, okay, you've got some caramelized, savory characters going on there between the sauce and then the actual, meat in the chicken. Certainly the Märzen would complement those directly. Märzen pretty much complements everything. It's a very easy thing to tell the guest as well. And the maltiness will help balance the spice as well.
Right. Well, and I think something that, I've been learning from you, Tom, is that the malty style of beers really probably have the broadest range of complementary flavor profiles to lots of different foods, and also could really achieve sort of that balance overall for a lot of different foods. Would you?
No,
would
that's absolutely right. And one of the more controversial things, the accepted terminology idea is that something malty is going to, cool the heat of something spicy, and you don't want to have a hoppy beer with something spicy because that's going to emphasize it. But there are people that really love spice and like heat. Something like a Czech Pilsner that's got a lot of bitterness, a lot of hop character to it. They'll really love that. You got to read, the guest, I suppose.
Well, you're right, because that is one of the 5 ways of pairing, right? So we can balance or complement, as you were saying about the Märzen, or we could really look to emphasize and draw some contrast to that heat, right?
Absolutely, bring it out more.
Yeah. Well, why don't we try a little?
No, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. I'm going to go.
You're gonna
I'm going to go after the thing that's going to make me look messy first, which is one of these wings, which look absolutely spectacular. Can you talk a little bit about the sauce on the wing?
Well, I think one of the things that is so great about our wings is the preparation, right? And that they really are done to be crispy at the table, super flavorful. This new dish is all about cooking more with beer, right? So there is Märzen in this recipe, right? There's a Märzen glaze. It's got a little bit of sweetness, but really I think what lingers on my palate with the wings is that spice that dances kind of across your palate, right? It's not too heavy, but it's sort of just right, and it lingers, and it complements the caramelized nature of the chicken, as you were talking about that.
They really do go well together. And then there's a little bit of the cleansing and the carbonation lifting the fat from the wing right off your palate, leaving you wanting another bite. It's a really nice combination.
Tom, I think that's a great idea that the Czech Pilsner would really complement these wings as well, in a different way than the Märzen. But I'm going to try it with the charcuterie plate, because I think that this style also goes really well with those cured meats, that slight sweetness and saltiness that the prosciutto and those different hams really bring on.
Absolutely, it certainly is. If you're in any kind of tavern in Europe, that's the way you're going to see people eating. That's the way I grew up eating. My dad was a big beer drinker, and there'd always be one of those. I don't think we called it charcuterie back then. It was just a bunch of sausage and some crackers and cheese, but went awesome with beer. Well, you're talking about that. I've been sitting there looking at the pears in that chicken pecan slider, and looking at this wonderful fruity Hefeweizen and thinking that's a perfect complement, a match made in heaven. So that's where I'm going next.
I think in addition to the pear chutney there, really the pecans around the chicken are probably also going to be a nice, almost secondary layer of flavoring that'll really work well with that fruity style.
And in that context, certainly it might pair well with the Märzen in that regard.
True, and I think, as you were saying, if anybody ever feels like that they're stuck for a pairing, the Märzen is a good go-to, right? I think those malty styles, as you and I have been talking about, they work really well across grilled foods, sauté, steaks, burgers, pizza.
Absolutely, and one of the things I'd like to just throw in there for everybody is that there really isn't a wrong answer. This isn't a test. There's not a shock that's going to go off in your seat if you decide to pair something that seems non-traditional. It really comes down to what the guests like, and from a server standpoint, I think reading the table and getting a feel for are they going to like a darker beer or a more assertive beer. Then great, and if not, keep them on the export by all means, because a light beer like the export, it's going to go with everything. And in the end, there is no wrong answer. It's beer here. We're not taking ourselves too seriously.
Well, I think you're right, Tom, and that's a great reminder that as a server, one of those first steps is to ask your guests a few questions. What do you usually like to drink? What do you usually eat with that? I mean, I think you're right to say that, between the malty style of the Märzen, between the clean and refreshing light style of the export, you've got a couple of beers that really would work all across all of these starters that we have, right? And in fact, I'm going to try this new pizza with the Golden Export.
I think that's a great combination. I think the only thing you really need to be wary of from a pairing perspective is you don't want the beer to overwhelm the food. So while export's going to go fine with just about anything because the flavors are very light, it's not going to overwhelm, and probably the best beer to go with salads and a lot of the lighter fishes and whatnot. The Schwartz beer or a big IPA or a big Belgian beer may not be the best beer to pair with a really light food, where you're just going to completely overwhelm it you lose the flavor of the food in the beer.
Right, and I think that's that complementary nature that we've been talking about. So lighter foods that can go with our lighter styles of beers, heavier foods go with the heavier styles of beers. I think as you were saying about the pear chutney and that fruitiness of the...
which was excellent, by the way. Which is certainly say you can't have a darker beer with a lighter food, but this is probably going to go better with one of the main dishes like a steak or something along those lines. We've just been trying these foods as great starters, but this is maybe the Schwartz beer is more of a main course beer in that regard.
So why don't we bring the main courses in?
What a brilliant idea! I'm glad I thought of it.